Couch in space!
Oh, look, it's a couch.
Looks comfortable.
And it's in space.
Cool.
Couch in space!
Okay. Hello, welcome. I have another good friend of mine here today, Andy Wild. Andy Wild, welcome to space. Great view, isn't it?
It is. It's
Lovely.
very vast.
Yeah,
It's vast.
just like
In
our
a big way.
conversations.
Okay.
And Andy is, he's been here, there and everywhere, and he's got some wonderful stories to tell. I met Andy at TVNZ as well, so we're in the broadcast industry. But you started in the UK,
Yeah.
didn't you?
I did. Not in the broadcast industry.
No, not in the broadcast industry.
No.
See, this is where it gets very interesting. So tell me, once upon a time in the UK, how did you get started on your career path and it kind of ended up?
Completely by accident. So my background is, so I left school, I'm old enough to have left school and served an apprenticeship.
Right.
And I worked for a company in the UK called Ferrantes. And Ferrantes were they basically built military equipment as a civilian company. So I worked
wow.
in, so I'm from Stockport, which is to the south of Manchester, and in Stockport, Ferrantes had a division, and their division was sonar and simulators. And we built the full motion flight simulators for the RAF when they switched from the Hawk, which is the Red Arrow Hawk train, to the thing called the Tucana, which is a prop-driven plane. And we built a thing called the CPT, which is the cockpit procedural trainers and the full motion flight simulators.
Now you're allowed to just
I mean, this
now?
is
This
back
all
in
getting
this is back in the 1980s, so this is
Okay.
all kind
Jeez.
of well known. And we also did towed array sonar systems, which are basically the sonars are so sensitive they have to be towed 2 to 3 kilometres behind the vessel.
Right.
And we worked on towed array sonars. I worked on HVME systems, hull vibration monitoring equipment. So it was nothing to do with television whatsoever. It was very heavily electronics based. So I've got a HND in microelectronics.
HND.
HND, have no degree. No, so it's a higher,
right.
a higher national diploma,
Okay.
which is a UK qualification.
Right.
And basically I did day release from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, once a week, for 5 years, I suppose it would have been.
Yeah.
Doing a day at college, microelectronics, advanced mathematics, physics, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, my
and then and programming. And then but then weird change of fate. Ferrantes fell on hard times, basically, and they said, "Hey, do you want to take early retirement at age 21? Would you like to kind of appoint for redundancy, and we'll pay you for your whole apprenticeship as well?" So I kind of took that. I then took an even stranger path. I then went and worked in a foundry as a methods engineer.
Oh, jeez.
Which is very dull.
So what does that do?
So a methods engineer is somebody who looks at how you cast something.
Oh, okay.
And they look for how it will be cast. So there's a method of how you would cast them, so how you pour the hot metal in
Yes.
to stop fractures and to stop imperfections in the cast. And I did, oh, this is even duller. So I did,
Oh, really? Yeah. No, tell me more.
So I did mathematical predictions of castings. So God, it was so dull. It was so dull.
Sounds dry.
But fortunately, I did that for 7 months though, maybe even longer, maybe 10.
Wow.
Anyway, but fortunately, I was lucky enough to live obviously in Manchester. And Granada Television were advertising for technicians. And I thought, it's got to be better than this. So I applied for this role at Granada TV, and I kind of never looked back from there. I kind of started out as a junior.
For those people who don't know Granada Television, what's the most famous show that they ever produced? in the whole wide world?
Coronation Street.
Oh, yes, Coronation
I'm
Street.
afraid it's still ongoing. I mean,
So you worked on Coronation Street, or you were in and around Coronation Street?
Coronation Street, believe it or not, were some very early adopters of nonlinear systems. So yes, I worked
Right, really?
I worked on Coronation Street for 3-4 years, I suppose, on and off. Both on. So I worked in the studios as well. So as people probably are or not aware, I'm not too sure, but there's a location set. So this is again back in the mid 90s now, early to mid 90s, and Coronation Street had an external set, which was kind of 3/4 size. If you looked at the houses, weren't full size houses, and we also had an internal set. which was basically in a very big building. And I worked with the racks engineers there, so the guys who looked after the cameras and racked everything, and we did all the recordings and things like that. And
So
this is back in the old 2 for record.
Sorry, I just wanted to know, why a 3/4 set? Why did they have 3/4 sets?
Cost.
Really,
basically.
just to save money?
So it did 2 things. One, it gave cost, but it also gave perspective as
Okay.
well. So I think the set was built back in the late 50s, early 60s, and I think it was a cost-saving exercise, possibly. But if you notice in very early, like 1990s, even up until probably 10 years ago, I'd say, probably less. When people go to on the sets externally, when they go to walk in, you'll probably see one person go through the door. The door is a little bit smaller than you'd imagine it would to be, and the first person goes in, but the second person, there'll be a cut before the second person goes in, because those sets are literally like 2 people deep. If you get 2 people going into that house, they go no further. It's like literally it's a wall that they went into, and the same for the rover's return and things like that. So. But that has now been moved brick by brick from the city centre, which is a place called Key Street, right in the city centre of Manchester. That's been now moved into Media City, on the other side of Media City, which is in Salford, probably about 2-3 miles down the road, about 5k down the road. And that's now a full-size set. And so you'll probably notice the later Coronation Street sets are a bit more detailed, they're a lot bigger. They've expanded over the years. Even the original Coronation Street set, which was just the Rover's Return Street, that expanded, and we got like a corner shop and there's also things there. So
now that it's so huge and worldwide.
Yeah, I mean the production behind that is absolutely relentless.
Yeah.
But going back to what I was saying earlier on, they adopted very early Media Composer systems back in the New Vista days, and we used to kind of record to tape. And we took the line output from the desk, and we used to record that onto a thing called a Magma chassis. And we would then kind of move those drives from the location, from the actual set, and we move it over into the main building where we would do the editing. And it was all done local drives across 2 edit suites, different blocks, and then it was conformed on a linear suite. Yeah, so
it's amazing.
I know. So it was good. It was kind of my whole first experience of Avid. And when I joined Granada, I went more into a technical role. So I looked after. I was again a junior, came up through the ranks, I suppose, and I was assigned ultimately into PPS, post-production services, which basically looked after the edit suites.
Right.
But I was also straddling the technical support side. So I did changes on VTR heads like BVW 75s and the 500 digidecks, that sort of thing. But literally. Another production called World in Action. They kind of acquired the edit suites, or the Media Composer edit suites, before anybody else in Granada. And my boss at the time, a guy called Derek King, when these systems came on, they were like, well, who's going to look after these non-linear things from Avid, you know? And Derek says, oh, give it a lad, it'll never catch on. And those were literally the words that... And then that was it. I kind of never looked back from there, but I haven't been involved.
Just to fill people in who aren't familiar with what we're just going to talk about. So early editing systems, and in our facility we use Avid, and Avid is very well known. A lot of people are using Premiere or Final Cut is what they used to use, but Avid was one of the first ones to bring out a non-linear editing system. But yeah, you were there from the very beginning.
Not quite. So 1989 was the first ever Media Composer system, but I bumped into my first system in '93.
Right. Okay.
So pretty early on.
But you see Avid working to its fullest capacity in action on Banana TV. Hey.
Yeah. So that was the first. I mean, people are very. When you look at non-linear software now, you literally can download it from the web and you just start straight away. I mean, these very early systems relied upon very dedicated I/O cards that went into it. You couldn't even get full screen. So when you edited inside Media Composer, there was only one resolution. And it didn't even fill the screen. It was actually a quarter of the size. It didn't even fill the source and record windows. It's kind of like a little kind of thumbnail almost.
Oh, right, yep.
External drives were 500 gig external drives, which were huge at the time, and quite physically
expensive.
Physically, yeah. So, it was very early days. It was very. What is quite surprising is fundamentally the way you edit now with Media Composer is pretty much identical to what people were doing in 89, 90, really. There's no, the interface looks very familiar.
Yep.
You could probably go back and edit with Avid One, I think it was called, or
Yep.
something like that. That was, it's quite interesting. It's not really changed that much.
No,
and the main competitor.
timeline based. It's all
Yeah.
timeline based.
Yeah, yeah.
Time code, timeline. Yeah.
I mean, for us, Granada Television had two strands to it. We had, and the Avid systems really kind of first popped up in the Current Affairs program, which
Yes.
is this World in Action. A guy called Roland Coburn was the main editor behind that. But we also had a drama department, so things like Cracker and Prime Suspect, which were kind of big drama, Jewel in the Crown, which kind of everybody knows, that's another Granada production. All those drama editors were completely based around Steenbecks and traditional film play. They actually didn't adopt Media Composer, they adopted the opposition, I suppose. To
Media 100.
No, they went to a company called Lightworks.
Oh.
So Lightworks was PC-based completely. It was a UK company. It fundamentally got bought up many years later by a company called Tektronix and became the profile playout server.
Yes.
In between that, but there was a thing called Lightworks, which you can now still edit, share, believe, no own Lightworks software. And
Really? Oh.
yeah, and Lightworks was adopted by the by a lot of drama people, so I said, purely because it had a true Steenbeck interface. So it had a panel where you could scrub backwards and forwards. You'd had a big kind of stop button and a mark in and a mark out. So because it felt more like a Steenbeck, people kind of adopted that more. And it was PC based. It was horrific. I looked after that for quite some time. But very early versions, you limped along, and it was an offline tool. It fed the online suites. But yeah, the Lightworks, and so Lightworks fundamentally then turned into a thing called the Heavyworks as well. But at the time we were very much split. So Coronation Street, documentary style programs were very much Avid orientated.
Yes.
Whereas the dramas were completely Lightworks orientated as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
So here you are, a freckled-faced young lad, and so you're starting to make your mark and looking after the Avid systems. And where does it take you from there on?
So from there, working with a broadcaster, I was lucky enough again that Avid Technology had a support office based in Manchester. Right. And because I spent quite a bit of time on the phone to Avid going, can you help me with this? And they said, look, we're looking for an engineer based out of Manchester to go hand in hand with a current engineer who was actually a guy called Adrian Shepherd, who was an ex-Yorkshire Television engineer, and Yorkshire Television and Granada Television are part of the same group, but on different side of the Pennines, as it were. And it was becoming more and more popular, more and more people were adopting these systems. So I basically jumped ship from Granada and started as a support engineer for Avid, based out of the Manchester office.
Yes.
I did that for about a year to 18 months, just completely UK based. And then I was asked if I wanted to become a product specialist, so I then started looking after a product called Express, which is a cut-down version of Media Composer.
Yes.
And then I kind of moulded into being a Media Composer specialist. And then in 1999, the first version of Shared Storage came out, which is a thing called Avid Unity. And I became part of, I kind of helped roll that out as well as a wider thing. And so I kind of worked, my life moves in 5-year cycles. I worked for Avid for about 5 years, 2 years as an engineer roughly, and 3 years as a product specialist for Media Composer and then Unity.
Yep.
And then I jumped out of there, went working for a reseller, which was great, based out of London, but we set up a Manchester office for them as well.
Yes.
But that was a much wider selection. I also was a product specialist for a thing called Avid DS, which was obviously Soft Image DS before that.
Yeah, I worked on that. It was a beautiful tool.
It was great, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I used to demo that as well at shows and the like. And I then went working for a company called Tyrell, who are based out of London, supplied a lot of the major post houses in London and broadcasters, and kind of got exposed to Final Cut, and a bit more towards Pro Tools as well, and some early kind of flints and flames from the old now Autodesk, then the discrete product. I kind of, again, 5 years there. I was a technical director in Manchester for those guys. And then I bailed out of that into just to become a freelance. And over this period of time working at Avid and even working at Tyrell, I kind of gained a qualification as an Avid instructor, but not just as operational courses, but also as engineering courses, so I could teach like those. Right. So Avid took me on as a freelancer, and I basically started doing what they call big picture sites, which at the time when Interplay, which is a big production asset management system that Avid brought out, they were putting that into like the BBC, and basically I started traveling the world with Avid and helping deploy systems onto site, train engineers both at the Pinewood training office back in the UK as well as on site, wherever that might be. So, yeah, I kind of worked all over.
Did you enjoy that, the travelling? You were unattached at that time?
I was not attached at the time. Not that time. But yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it was great. But you know, after the first couple of years of it, I mean, I did it for far too long. I did that for like 6-7 years.
Wow. Okay.
And towards the last year, it kind of dragged. I mean, I was lucky enough. You know, I kind of mixed pleasure with work. So I was looking that I could go away and work for 2 weeks, and then I wouldn't work for 2 weeks. And
okay.
So it was. You know, I was quite lucky. I also did a regular gig where I spent pretty much 2 months of the year in Australia.
Right.
Where I would fly out and train a lot of the engineers for Australasia out of Sydney. Yeah, and then we did. I settled down and had a family, and obviously then dynamics changed somewhat. And I went back working for a reseller in the UK, and then ultimately 4 years ago, we came out here to New Zealand for TVNZ. So yeah.
Flew over through space.
Yeah, teleported.
Yeah, teleported.
It only took a couple of seconds to get. It didn't take too long.
Now, you mentioned that you know, you worked very hard, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I know that part of your downtime or your 2 weeks off is you liked mountain climbing. Is that right?
yes, it was. So
quite an avid mountain climber too, aren't you? An avid mountain climber.
Yeah. So I was unlucky enough that one of my close friends from childhood, really, I know him since I was like 5. We kind of, you know, drifted in and out of each other's life, but we bumped into together again when I was saying I was doing my microelectronics. I lost contact with him when we left primary school. I bumped into again when I was doing my first year of microelectronics training and was at this Ferranti company. He was big into bike racing. He tried to make it into being a pro cyclist, like a Tour de France type thing. Anyway, literally didn't see him again for another couple of years, and then he comes back to the UK. I said, I'm done with the cycling thing. I'm going to become, I want to become like an outdoor instructor type thing. Oh, okay. So I started hanging out with him for a bit, and we'd climbed a little bit when we were kids. Yeah.
Just around the UK, or did you
just
hop
around the
over
UK?
to Europe?
So we were really lucky. I mean, where we live in Manchester, even though it's a very heavy industrialised place, we are very close to the Peak District, which is kind of like climbing Mecca in the UK.
Okay.
So you know, you could jump on the train if you didn't have. You usually take the bikes, jump on the train, get off the train, then cycle somewhere and kind of come back. But yeah, we were, even though we're in Manchester, we're kind of on the edge of the Peak District. We can kind of get to climbing places relatively easily. Anyway, when we kind of started taking a bit more serious, he started doing a course, I started hanging out with him a bit more, and it kind of snowballed up from there. And then we started travelling around Europe, doing a lot of rock climbing, so Spain, France, a little bit in Germany.
Oh my God.
It then also kind of moulded itself into doing ice climbing as well, so we spent a lot of time in Norway, Scotland, North Wales, obviously very, very easy to get to. And it all got a little bit out of control from there, so we started doing you know, ice climbing, rock climbing. My friend Andy took it to the next level. He became like a professional climber. That's how he made his living as an instructor, but he also became very well known for setting some of the hardest mixed ice climbs in the UK. And yeah, so I didn't kind of go that far. It wasn't me. I was kind of the guy who was kind of hanging along, holding the ropes. But yeah, I've kind of travelled all over. You know, done climbing in the States, climbed in Australia.
And I mean, it's a dangerous sport. Do you have any scars? Like, you obviously haven't lost any fingers through frostbite or anything
more
like
mental scars.
Mental scars,
than anything else. And I've you know, I've been very lucky. I've not really broken anything. I've had sprains and injuries, and I've had some very close shaves. We have had friends who've sadly passed away in some climbs as well. We've actually lost friends who've died on certain routes. But no, I've been lucky / sensible / attached to the right person. You know what I mean? So so I've not. There's no physical scars. There's nothing. Like I say, more mental scars than physical scars.
Okay.
But yeah. But no, great times. And it was great. They were the complete opposite. I did relatively high tech, cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
1 week, and then I was living in a tent.
So you
the
had a
following-
pretty good work-life balance there.
Yeah, no,
Both
it was
quite
great.
extreme, I suppose, if you think about it.
They were complete opposites to each other, which I think was a kind of almost a sanity,
Right.
it kind of gave you that relief. You weren't, you
Okay,
know.
yeah.
So I could quite happily probably spend all my time in front of a computer, always finding something to do.
Mm-hmm.
But at that particular time, it was great. It was a mechanical process. You had to think in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And you could kind of switch off. You were just solely focused on the climbing element of it, rather when you're working, particularly in post-production, you're kind of worrying about all the different surrounding aspects. Is this going to get here on time? Or have I done this? Have I done that? So, yeah, it was great. It was complete opposite. It was a great downtime period.
Yeah.
You know, and we had a big, you know, it was odd. I had work colleagues, and then I had climbing friends, and those two didn't necessarily overlap with each other. They were
Right,
completely
okay.
different. So it was interesting. It was a different social interaction as well.
So why New Zealand?
It's a good question, really. So there was one was the opportunity arose to kind of live here. I'd worked.
Really, did someone try to filth you over? Hey, come on, Andy, come on.
So there was So basically, TVNZ were looking for engineers, and I had helped train some of the engineers over here originally, and I thought, well, you know, why not? You know, it'd be great. So I applied for the role, and I was very lucky enough to get it as well. And I came over here to help TVNZ deploy their interplay system for the newsroom and promos and that's me. And I did that for a year, and then shock horror turned freelance again type thing. So, but no, it was great. It's very different here. It's not. So New Zealand is. From a work point of view, is very different to what I expected, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, in a you know, so I mean, I've been lucky enough in my previous life, as it were, with Avid. I bumped into a lot of work with, you know, very big broadcasters around the world, some big post houses like, you know, Weta and people like that.
Yeah.
But when you step outside of those, and it's the same no matter where you go in the world, but when you step outside of those, you know, it's a different skill set, and it's a different tool set as well that kind of exists there. So it's been great, and basically we came here for the lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the
What a
lifestyle.
great lifestyle it is too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I can't compare Manchester that is landlocked,
Right,
quite literally.
Yeah.
Also, you know, which and big cities. I mean, Europe at the moment has its own problems and concerns.
That's right.
And we're so far removed from that here in New Zealand that we're kind of a little bit in a bubble.
Yeah.
But in a good way, I think. And you know, we've got two young children, and they, you know, they have a great lifestyle. I'm not worried about them.
Right.
Like I would necessarily be in Manchester, as it were, or any big city, as it were. You know, where are they? Are they okay? You know, they walk to school. Yeah. They walk home bare feet from school. Yeah. That type of thing. And
you know, beach.
We live. You know, we can walk to the local beach. We, you know, so I can't really. You can't compare. They're completely different. You know, there's some things that I do miss about Europe. So the convenience and the travel and the culture that you can kind of get there. But no, I think that the lifestyle you've got here, you can't really compare it. Yeah, you can't compare it. So it was more the draw of the lifestyle than it was the technology. You know, I'm kind of getting a bit.
You can't escape the technology, though. You know, it always catches up. I mean, that's what our world is based on now.
And you know, our technology is now kind of getting to the point where it's kind of shrinking the world.
Yeah,
you know, you can work pretty much anywhere. You know, not only we got the technology where we can download and run the latest version of MIDI Composer on a laptop.
Okay.
You know, but we can now work remotely from home through a web browser and things like that. So, so it'd be
it's just some exciting times ahead, and because we're kind of running out of time. And I haven't gotten through half my questions, so I'm going to have Andy back at some stage where we're going to have, you know, a more in-depth talk about different technologies and things like that. We're living in a very exciting time, and Andy actually occupies some space here at Sunpix, and we talk a lot of shop and technology, and we're both kind of excited about where it's all heading.
Definitely, yeah.
And we'll watch this space. Watch this space. Woo. Poppy's not here today. She's at Dog HQ, Doggy Daycare. So hello, Poppy, if you're watching. Thank you, Andy.
No worries,
it's been a
thank you.
pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
I'll have you back soon.
Indeed.
And we'll keep talking.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for being here on Couch in Space. Bye.
Awesome.
Out in space!